on that interception, I was pretty nervous. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But after that, put it behind me. I think, that after the crowd got really loud after that pick, it was just, oh, shoot. And then I was like, okay, here we go. Can't get much worse than that. So.
Yeah, I have a feeling you didn't say shoot after that interception, after the crowd got loud. First throw of his regular season career, looking like Brett Favre, the bad Brett Favre, rolling right, telegraphing left, throwing it across the field, pick six, 7-0. And, of course, the Jets go on to win 48-17, just like we would have expected in that moment, Peter King.
The thing that you saw, Steve Young said it at halftime, and Favre has said it too in the wake of his disastrous interception against the Saints in the championship game 8 and 9 years ago. I think the biggest thing that happened to Sam Darnold is that essentially he said to himself, look, I'm better than this. I'm going to be better than this. I made a mistake. It's not going to ruin my night. And that's what happened from there on out. But I will also say this, that this was the definition of a team win. Special teams played great. Obviously, the defense with 5 picks. Matthew Stafford was, I don't know where he was. I don't know who he was in this game. But it was very, very clear. And afterwards, Mike, the Jets were saying they knew what the Lions were doing. And that, in the first game of a season, with a new regime, has got to be driving Matt Patricia crazy this morning.
Peter, it sounds like you're saying that Sam Darnold put himself through the Stuart Smalley pep talk. I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, and doggone it, people like me, and it worked.
To me, what I'm watching Sam Darnold play, other than that one snap, that first snap of the game, the idiotic play, he looked like a veteran quarterback. And so all the people who have said that he's the answer, I think for one night at least, they got a positive look. And Mike, by the way, I was out early this morning walking the dog in New York, and here's what we have. I just wanted to share this with you because it's just like everybody in New York is saying, okay, we got our guy for the next 15 years. It's all over. But again, I'm not in any way throwing shade at anybody or diminishing his performance because he was very, very good. Beautiful deep touchdown throw to Richie Anderson. But other than to say it's one game, this was a game that was probably more of a complete team win than anybody had in week 1 of this season.
And that was the New York Post headline, he's darn good. And, Peter, I think it helps tremendously to have a $10 million assistant quarterback coach in Josh McCown, who was there all the time, working with him, talking to him, interacting with him on the sideline throughout the game. I think that went a long way toward calming Sam Darnold down and allowing him to be. And think about it. How often have we had this where there is a first-round rookie quarterback with a veteran who is there for one reason only and fully embraces and owns it, to help that guy be the best he can be? Usually there's tension, jealousy, resentment, whatever. This is Josh McCown all in the effort to help Sam Darnold, and I think that went a long way toward getting him to forget about that interception and move on with the game that we saw him have.
There's no question about it. If you look back at his recent history, Josh McCown, you go back and you remember when he was playing really well in Chicago and Jay Cutler came back and they gave the job back to Jay Cutler instead of letting McCown keep playing. And then he did it in Cleveland. Remember how Johnny Manziel said, he's the best thing that happened to me when I was in Cleveland. And it didn't work out. But everybody who has been around this guy has basically said he is the absolute perfect quarterback to learn from. Sam Darnold is just the latest guy who's the beneficiary of the most unselfish guy I think I've covered in my years covering the NFL, Mike.
Yeah, and look, who knows? Maybe the Lions are the worst team by far in the NFL this year, and the Jets are going to continue to struggle. But for one night, the Jets created the kind of buzz we haven't seen them create in a long, long time. So it was a good night for Jets fans. Let's flip it over to the Lions, Peter. We did that little 2-minute stub on the way in on NBCSN. The radio audience hasn't heard this. Your observations of the Lions, you went to a lot of training camps, and you saw something when you visited with Matt Patricia's team that gave you pause. What was it?
The fact that on the first 2 long series of the practice that I saw, they were all in on the running game. LeGarrette Blount carried it like 3 of the first 4 snaps in 11-on-11 that day, and then they had another series against the defense that was dominated by the run. And I walked away saying, Matt Patricia is trying to tell his team, listen, we all know that Matt Stafford can throw for 5,000 yards. Quite frankly, I don't care. The only way you win in this league is to be able to make it 2nd and 4. And we're going to be able to run the ball well. And last night they were terrible at it. You saw it right from the start. And to me, and add to the fact that their franchise left tackle, Taylor Decker, basically gets caved in and might have gotten Matt Stafford's left knee injured. We don't know yet, probably not. But this is something that the Detroit Lions and the past generations of Detroit Lions have tried to solve the problem of life after Barry Sanders in the running game and on the offensive line. Look, Barry Sanders and Lomas Brown are not walking back through that door again. And the Lions, I applaud Matt Patricia for trying to institute a really strong running game and a very good offensive line. But boy, did they look awful last night. You have to just say, hey, listen, it's one game. And if you're the Lions, that's as depressing. To me, it's more depressing than the Bills game, than what Buffalo did, because Buffalo at least saw Sean McDermott last year in year 1 lead a woebegone franchise to the playoffs. So they got some faith that the guy knows a little bit about what he's doing. To the Detroit Lions fans waking up this morning, Matt Patricia is simply another failed Bill Belichick assistant who went on and couldn't have success anywhere else. And look, he has to prove now that this was a 1-week blip on the radar. But it also falls on Jim Bob Cooter to make sure that the Jets are an outlier. And if they're saying, hey, we knew what was coming, they better not know what's coming in the next few weeks in Detroit.
Yeah, that was the comment from Jets linebacker Darren Lee after the game. We were calling out their plays as Stafford was getting up to the line of scrimmage. We knew his signals. We knew everything. That's just preparation as a defense. It seemed like we were in his head as a defense. They attributed that to film study. Now, if it were the Patriots, of course, people would assume something else. But for the Jets, film study, and that's not a good look on Jim Bob Cooter. When Matt Patricia got the job, there was a question, is he going to bring in his own offensive coordinator or is he keeping Jim Bob Cooter? I think maybe he got nudged a little bit to keep Cooter, and he may be regretting that this morning. There's something to be said for getting your own guys in there and for getting a fresh start. But, the offense wasn't deemed to be broken, at least the passing game. The passing game was dreadful last night, and the running game still as bad as it's been. As you mentioned, Peter, 39 yards, 15 carries, 2.6 yards per carry. And the big free agent acquisition, LeGarrette Blount, had -3 yards on 4 attempts.
Well, let's just say one thing about Matt Patricia and Jim Bob Cooter. I think there's 2 things at play here. Number one, when Matt Patricia came in, he had a conversation, with Matt Stafford. And basically, I think Stafford really gave his seal of approval to Cooter. Number 2, I don't think that Matt Patricia had a guy to run his offense. It's not to say he couldn't have found one, but I just don't think he had a guy who he was dying to hire. And so if that's the case, look, Patricia can always make a change at the end of this season. He can always go and, sort of reconstitute Darrell Bevel or whoever it may be. He can bring somebody else in, to run his offense. But I just think he didn't have anybody else, Mike, at the time that he really wanted.
You mentioned Bill Belichick earlier, and Patricia, the latest guy to come from that tree. And one of the reasons I thought the Lions would win and possibly win big last night, Bill Belichick 9-0 all-time against rookie quarterbacks while playing at home. So here's the youngest rookie, at least since the merger, to be starting. Of course, Matt Patricia is going to have picked something up from Bill Belichick over the years on how to deal with a rookie quarterback right out of the gates. And no, 0-1 for his career, 0-1 at home against rookie quarterbacks. So there goes that one. And this is going to dust off that question, Peter, and we've seen it time and again. Former Bill Belichick assistants just don't thrive beyond New England.
Yeah, I think we have to look at this and say, look, there's definitely evidence, of guys who are on the Bill Belichick tree. Both coaches and general managers. The only one you can look at and say he's really had a good run is Thomas Dimitroff, the general manager of the Falcons. But everybody else has really struggled. And I guess I would just make this point about all that, and that is that, look, with the exception of all the guys who left and who moved on to a new job, the only guy who's had a quarterback, a really potentially very good quarterback, is Matt Patricia. And so that's why I think that stat, I'm not saying it's meaningless. I think it's a little bit specious because, in my opinion, so much of what happens in the NFL depends on whether you've got a quarterback. So many of those coaches haven't had one.
Yeah, and again, it is just one game. You throw out week one, but to get blown out like they did at home by a Jets team that has been bad in recent years, that is a tough, tough way to start the season. We'll see how they rebound and recover. By the way, our friends at Merriam-Webster, lambaste and lambast, both appropriate and accepted pronunciations of
Except
lambaste.
lambast is so much better, Mike, because I said it.
No, I like lambaste because it makes me think of turkey. So
very good. Very good.
I tried.